Lovers is a romantic movie with Joaquin Milque's Murder Phoenix, Gwyneth Smell My Vagina Paltrow and Vanessa Shaw, where Mr. Phoenix plays a depressed guy who has tried to commit suicide several times after losing his fiancée. Now having overprotective parents, he is stuck at their apartment until he meets a neighbor, played by Gwyneth Fish Candles, who immediately strikes a flame in his heart but is too busy being fucked from left to right by a married guy. Later on he meets Vanessa Shaw's character, however, who genuinely is interested in Phoenix's character. Oh, what a man to do! Pick the hot blonde who is more drama than she's worth but probably an amazing lay, or pick the wholesome, slightly less attractive girl with family and a future. It's difficult. I've been there. It's hard. And two lovers show this. And it's fine. It's a love story. A story about depression. About trying to find your heart, your soulmate, and deciding who is best for you. This might not be a good movie on a romantic date, nor one to watch with your wife, but still, it's an okay movie that gives you something. Even though it does have crazy Gwyneth before she got injected with Hollywood a couple of times too often. Check that. Proie is a French horror movie by Antoine Blossier about a guy visiting his wife's family at his grounds. Tensions are already high in this far from loving family. After finding out that a bunch of animals ran themselves to death into one of their fences, they find a massive boar tooth near the place of the accident. They decide to hunt down the animal that caused it, but that animal, and its kin, will prove more trouble than they initially thought. Family secrets and rivalries pop up, and the guy finds himself not only fighting a force of nature but also his family. Proie is an effective movie reminiscent of the first Predator movie in a way. The characters in the movie are stalked by an unseen killing force and try to get out alive. Unfortunately for the characters, there's more to this, so there's no real camaraderie in the movie, even though we are talking about a family. It's quite a dark and bloody movie. The kind of dark blood you'd expect a boar to gush out once you slit its throat. And it works. Up to a point. I liked the movie up to a certain point. If you want to know, it's the moment the wives decide to interfere. And then it goes downhill for me. Overall, Proie is a fun pastime flick for as long as it lasts, but it loses momentum and plausibility near the end of the film. The ending is so fleeting I can't even remember it without looking it up. All I can say is, it ain't a happy one, but as you watch the movie you will already know this. Check that. In 2011's The Hit List, a man, played by the young Cole Hauser, who can now be admired in his badass role of Rip Wheeler in Yellowstone, finds his best friend in a compromising position with his wife. His job's a joke, he's broke, his love life's DOA. It's like he's always stuck in second gear and he has no friends to go to and drink some coffee with in Central Perk, so he goes to a bar where he tries to chat up the only guy in the room. That guy's not having it at first though, but he ends up changing his mind. The two men play a hypothetical game. What if you could make a hit list? Who would you put on it? He obliges in these dark thoughts and puts down 5 names. And wouldn't you know it, they start dropping. Why? Well, the guy he was with is a hitman. Cue a fight for his life and the people still left on the list, and an attempt to stop the hitman from continuing as they are both chased by law enforcement. The hit list is a promising premise, but it lacks the acting chops and editing to make this a truly compelling movie. Cuba Gooding Jr. normally is a fine actor, but he seems to be a bit lackluster in his attempt at portraying the assassin character. The main character is way too bland, and even though I feel for his plight, I did not spend enough time with him to truly be on his side. Even though it was a hypothetical question, I do not care about the people that are dying, nor our protagonist or even the antagonist. Anyone who has seen at least a dozen or so movies will know what will happen in this movie and will pretty much guess the ending, which is unfortunate K again. The premise allows for so many things to happen that it could have been a very compelling psychological thriller. Alas, it's a meek and shallow action movie that probably went straight to DVD. If you want a movie with a similar plot, please check out the far superior 2004 Tom Cruise movie called Collateral instead. Drop that. Satanico Pandemonium is a Mexican nonsploitation/horror movie from 1975 about a nun who is tempted by what she thinks is none other than the devil himself. Secretly she indulges in her fantasies and wishes to be free to indulge her sexual and other dark desires. She becomes adamant that she is the vessel for Satan and tries to destroy the convent she belongs to. The young and beautiful Sister Pezzit plays Sister Maria, who masterfully uses her angelic innocent face underneath the habit to convey innocence and purity until she succumbs to her passions and murders fellow nuns, attempts to sleep with young boys and does all kinds of other mischief. Satanico Pandemonium is a cult movie and not really a good one. The blood is clearly fake and the kills aren't really gory, so all that is left is gratuitous nude female forms dancing on your screens. It does this ever so often, but even then it left me to desire a little bit more. The premise of the movie is interesting and it leaves you wondering a wee bit whether it was all the nuns' fault or not, but still, the movie should have been a little bit more interesting in comparison with other nonsploitation horror flicks. For lovers of the genre, this is definitely one you should add to your list, but there are many more that offer a wee bit more entertainment and flesh than this one. In retrospect, it kinda reminded me of Saint Maud in a way, which is a much better film, though unfortunately not technically a nonsploitation flick. Satanico Pandemonium, take it or leave it. Check that. Lost and Delirious brings us the story of a couple of girls in a private school. No, this is not one of those sexploitation movies where lesbians start scissoring Yakuza in lingerie a mere seconds after that I usually watch. No, this is a romantic coming-of-age story about girls and love. Love for their friends, love for men, love for Yakuza and the people who look down on them, and their blossoming love, whether from a parental side, authoritative side, or the side of short-sighted people. We get Miss Cabarton as Mary, aka Mouse, a quiet girl who is dropped at the private school and enters the dorm to lives together with Paula, played by Piper Perabo, and Victoria, played by young Jessica Biel, who have a sort of relationship together. In the real world we call it experimenting, as Paula and Victoria are clearly having sex with Yakuza. As soon as shit hits the fan, however, that lesbian love is discarded and problems arise. Lost and Delirious, despite having some nudity, isn't a sexploitation movie. It's a girly girl movie about feelings, and it's done quite well. For less cynical people like myself, I'd advise to keep a box of tissues next to you while watching the movie. No, not for that, you puffs, for wiping the tears off your cheek, you dirty little bastards. Seriously though, this is a beautiful movie and it has some very nice scenes. I enjoyed watching it very much, even though I am a toxic male, and secretly it made me wish I too was a girl at a private school at one point in time. Well, kinda seeing the ending of the movie, depends which character. Oh well. Anyways, be sure to watch this with your girlfriend, it'll be a blast for both. Check that. Warlock is the first in a trilogy of movies about a male witch. A male with, you say? Why yes, male witches are called warlocks. We in Dutch don't even have a word for that, but they did exist. This warlock, played by charismatic and handsomely creepy Julian Sands, gets captured by the Inquisition back in the day and decides to escape. He lands in the far-flung future of the 80s and promptly meets and disposes of the two people who saved him. Cue the Inquisitor, played by Richard D. Grant, who also lands in the future in order to stop the evil warlock from doing his evil deeds. Richard D. Grant teams up with the lovely Cassandra, played by Laurie Singer, to hunt down the Warlock and stop him from using the Grand Grimoire to raise Satan. Warlock is good old 80s horror fun. It's entertaining from the beginning to the end and overall a good movie that elevates a simple horror story into something more. It often doesn't feel like a horror movie as the scares and gore are a bit tame in comparison to many other 80s horror movies. It still works though, and Warlock is an effective black comedy horror film with a supernatural twist. I was sad to read, however, that Laurie Singer apparently was an ass on set and did not want to wear the prosthetics needed to show her gradual change through the movies. It didn't affect me at the time to see the pretty mediocre makeup to change her, but now it makes me wonder how much better it would have been if only it hadn't been a massive cunt about it. Smash that. Warlock 2, The Armageddon brings back Julian Sands as the Warlock in an unrelated movie that is still part of the Warlock franchise. In this movie, a bunch of druids have been halting the rise of Satan through the centuries by performing rituals but are interrupted by Christians who do not like their pagan ways. Flash forward to modern times where two young people are madly in love but like Romeo and Juliet are from different sides of the aisle. One are devout Christians, the other, druids. I think you can guess what happens next as the Warlock arrives and wreaks havoc on the town. Warlock 2: The Armageddon is more horror than black comedy this time, and that strips pretty much the charm of the original Warlock movie, turning this into another bland VHS rental horror movie. Gone is also the always cool 80s aesthetic, as we are now firmly in the 90s. I'm only glad they didn't decide to include the typical 90s techno beat in this movie, cause that would have made it a stinker immediately. As it stands, Warlock 2 is an enjoyable sequel that, once again, is a completely separate story and has nothing to do with the first one besides the main character. A little bit confusing when I saw it first, cause I was like, hey, didn't he? But no. Elseworlds or whatever, it didn't matter back then. A movie was a movie, it was made to entertain, and this one did that enough for me. Check that. Warlock 3, The End of Innocence swaps the charming Julian Sands for the slightly less charming Bruce Payne as the Warlock. We follow a girl who inherits a house. She is looking for more information about her family and is haunted by dreams of sacrifice and other of that good stuff. During her scary stay at the first night, her lame-ass friends join her to party and do stuff. I don't really know why, but they are there. In comes Bruce Payne as the Warlock, who knows the true meaning behind the house, and then, surprise surprise, bodies start to drop. Warlock 3 is a straight-to-DVD movie, and that should say enough. The plot of stupid. It's all drenched in that late 90s look, including lousy CGI and lame music. There's edgy sex scenes and oh my god, a BDSM scene or two, cause yeah, no edgy 90s and shit. But overall, Warlock 3 is a boring and disappointing third part of a fairly good trilogy. Most people blame Bruce Payne if I read reviews, but to me he was the most decent part of the movie. The fault this movie has is bringing it into a haunted house with stupid edgy tweens doing jack shit but be annoying to Agatha. I didn't find anything entertaining about the movie, not even the sexy scenes or the gore. It's just bland, boring and badly done. Just skip this one, fellas, and feel lines. There are only 2 Warlock movies. Drop that. In Deadly Summer, I'm not even gonna bother trying to say the French title since my speech patterns are only in English. An amazingly beautiful and sexy young girl played by gorgeous Isabelle Adjani moves into a little town with her introverted mother and her deaf father. As she flaunts her body, her long legs and her tight ass across the town, the local mechanic falls madly in love with her. She is way out of his league, however, but someone does end up in her panties. Any normal person would suspect there is something going on there, and even in this movie you will be proven correct. Why she came to the town and started a relationship with the mechanic will be explained across the movie by having several character narrate sections of the movie. We have a couple of flashbacks where slowly the truth is revealed. The charm of this movie, besides Adjani's extreme sex appeal, is its humor and the bright sunny landscape of southern France. It all feels warm and fuzzy, the touch of the hot soft skin of a woman lying on the beach, but the backdrop of all of this hotness is pretty dark, and so is the last half hour of the movie where everything gets shattered and the title One Deadly Summer comes to its right. This movie is great. Not only because of you know what, but also for the plot, the humor and how it turns from something light-hearted to a drama. It was a hit for a reason, and Adjani's upskirts weren't the only thing that made this a success. Smash that. In Sunscarred, a movie by renowned Takeshi Miike, Katayama, played by Shoei Kawa, saves a man from being beaten to death by a bunch of hoodlums. He delivers some good pain and embarrasses the scum. Unfortunately for him, the ringleader of the bunch, A lollipop-sucking dickhead decides to kidnap and kill Katayama's kid. Vowing for vengeance, Katayama is stopped all around by authorities, but he will not rest before having his say and forces a confrontation with the killer of his kid. Sunscarred is a dark and bleak revenge movie that hits you in the right spot. Especially as a parent, this movie will firmly put you on the side of Katayama and rage against the supposed justice of law enforcement and the law itself. The funny thing is that Sunscarred is one of the more tame movies that Takashi Miike made, renowned for movies such bleak, weird and violent movies as Audition, Icky the Killer, Happiness of the Categories and Imprint amongst others. Sunscarred is surprisingly normal but effective. A great revenge flick where there are no winners, except the viewer. Go watch it now. Smash that.